Aloha, I'm Alana Kay. Welcome to another edition of Spirit of Maui. One of the things I love about Maui is the number of creative people here, whether it be musicians, artists, or creators of any kind. I've had the pleasure of meeting and knowing many of them, and today's guest is exceptionally creative and so lucky to be using her gifts in her everyday life. My guest today is Julia Ann Roberts, the creator of the Bones Family Books and Curriculum that teaches anatomy to preschoolers. Currently, she teaches at a Waldorf-inspired homeschool and continues to write books for the Bones Family series. At its core, the Bones Family is revolutionary in its approach to teaching self-awareness to young children. Julia has also been a children's educator and entertainer for several decades, so the creation of this series was a natural evolution for her. Julia, what inspired you to create this series?
Well, while I was attending anatomy class in massage school, I remember thinking to myself, wow, this is the best quality education I've ever gotten. I mean, when you think about it, when we're born, we get gifted this body, and we've got it our whole lives, and we experience and perceive our whole lives through it. I call it our 3D spacesuit, and we're able to interact with reality and our world in it. And so when somebody gave me an owner's manual for it and said, here's how it works, I was just delighted. So I felt the value of it so much, and it impacted me so heavily that I asked my teacher, I said, are they teaching anatomy in schools? Like, is everyone getting this kind of education? It's so needed. And she said, yeah, you know, in about 5th grade or so, some schools will give some anatomy, but they're not having a whole lot of success with it. And I thought, okay, well, ask my son. So I asked my son, did you get any anatomy in middle school? And he goes, oh yeah, but I don't remember any of it. And I felt like, okay, well, it's probably because by the time you get to 5th grade, it's just a lot of rote memorization. It's just one other science class and a lot of names of different things in Greek or whatever they've got it in. So anyway, I figured it's just because by the time they get into 5th grade, they've lost some of this wonder, some of this magical connection to nature that all small children have. They know that they're in a living miracle. They can feel it in their bones, and they're hooked, they're interested. It just so happened that one of my classmates had a 4-year-old daughter, and this 4-year-old daughter was completely obsessed with her anatomy flashcards, her mom's anatomy flashcards. Now, let's keep in mind that these are black and white medical, technical drawings of maybe a shoulder. And I mean, if you don't know what you're looking for, I don't know how she even knew what they were. But it didn't matter, she was completely fascinated. So I decided to test my theory that, well, maybe we're teaching this at the wrong age. Maybe we need to teach people about themselves, empower them with this knowledge, make it fun, and start them as young as possible. What it ended up being was something akin to self-awareness, conscious evolution that's happening with these little kids, and so it just turned out to be a wonderful, wonderful experience. I decided to test it with Bones Camp.
Yeah, you want to tell us about Bones Camp? Is that like an all-day thing, or how do the children do that?
That was a couple of days a week. At the time, we were experiencing the COVID lockdown. We were just coming out of that summer. So it was the summer of the COVID lockdown. And so parents were really eager to have childcare, to say the least. So I was able to run a small homeschool pod that just taught them all about themselves, and it was successful. It was very successful.
How many children were in that pod?
Anywhere from 4 to 10 is how many I had in that pod. And they were just. I think that probably one of the things that the parents noticed the most was just how much these kids were able to learn. So they would come back from a day of Bones Camp and actually be teaching their parents something the parents didn't know.
I bet a lot of the parents don't know. Right.
Yeah. The other thing that I felt was really important to the parents was how much these 4-year-olds were able to comprehend. So more complex concepts like circulation or these were very complex concepts, and they helped me to develop the whole curriculum.
Yeah, so you had that experience, so that really propelled you to go on and continue with it and really integrate it into other things.
Yes.
So the camp sounds really interesting. So I want to hear more about that. But you pointed out that the younger children were more readily absorbed and were eager to learn the information because they start to get kind of set in their ways. And I suppose they start to get socialized. They're a lot more natural when they're younger. And that's interesting that you observed that and you went with that. That's great. What I was wondering is, was it really natural for them? Like, did they start to like feel their body and say like, oh, what is this,
Right. So I used several techniques to get them into their body. We are Waldorf inspired in certain ways. So the Waldorf inspiration comes from the music part of it, singing, moving, lots of movement. If your child is between the ages of 2 and 4, you're going to want a lot of movement to help integrate these more complex concepts, right? So I would put out some books for them, and the curriculum evolved from them asking questions. So they would say, why is this blood blue and why is this blood red? And so I would lead them into the circulatory system and the lungs and the heart and why when you get a little cut on the tip of your finger, there's blood there, but your heart puts it there. So a big part of what I do, and here's a photo of one of our youngest fans. She's 2.5, and she will sit and read the entire Bones series. I have 5 books, and she'll sit and read the entire series to her grandmother, to the ability that she's able. It's just a naturally occurring curiosity, and I'm just giving them what they want when they want it.
When they're open to it, yeah.
Yes.
And I suppose then they start to get into all the, like I mentioned earlier, the social aspects of. They're more open to learning that kind of a thing. When they get older and then they're teenagers, they're more like concerned about all of their, does he like me? Does she like me?
Right.
So that's really interesting that it gives them a really good basis and it gives them what is the term you use for what happens to them when they understand how their internal mechanisms.
Right. So we call that interoception. Interoception is the ability to notice what goes on inside the body. So hunger, whether it be hunger, thirst, cold, hot, but also possibly more importantly are the emotional responses that a body has. So interoception is how we feel inside of our bodies as opposed to exteroception. Exteroception is how our senses perceive our world and what's going on in our environment. But interoception is key to self-regulation, which is one of the most important things that parents noticed when we asked them what benefits the kids were getting from the program. They said, yeah, they're able to self-regulate. If they fall down and get bloody or whatever, they know what the blood is, where it goes, what it does,
right. Yeah, good point.
how it's supposed to work. And so it's not some mystery of, oh my God, there's all this blood pouring out of my... Also, when they break bones, they understand, in a little more severe injury, they understand that bones break sometimes and they heal. And so it's that's part of it. But the the other deeper part of it is the fact that they are more aware of what's going on an emotional level, and so they're able to breathe. I teach them self-awareness. I don't just teach them what things are, but I teach them the fact that the brain is where our feelings come from, but we feel them in our bodies. So if it comes from your brain, we can control how we feel. And this seems like a bit woo-woo for some 4-year-olds, but they're all about it. Sometimes I'll teach them some breath work. I'll teach them breath of fire, or we'll do some animal yoga and things like that. And I'll ask them how it makes them feel, and they'll be like, "Oh, this feels great." They really do feel that kind of blissful feeling when we cultivate that through knowing how the body and the brain works.
And wouldn't it be nice if people could hang on to that? Because that's kind of like what the spiritual movement is about, is bringing people back to that point.
Yes.
I'm pretty passionate about feeling that we should be teaching children from a young age how to stay present and inside, because that's really what the whole spiritual movement is getting you back there. Wouldn't it be better if people could grow up from that space? And that's one reason I really appreciate the Waldorf method. Right. And I love how your curriculum fits in with the homeschooling and with the Waldorf inspired homeschooling especially. And on Maui, being a place where we have a lot of creative people, as I mentioned, that is key to being a creative person also. So you talked about a few different things, but I also wanted to add, and I'm sure you're aware, I'm preaching to the choir here, that's your creative portal as well. And you'll notice that some of the people, I meet people who say that they're not creative, and I'm like, everybody is. It's just a matter you need to learn how to tap into it. Everybody has creative ability. So if people could do it from the time they're younger, I really feel that would help them with their self-esteem. Tremendously, because you're not identifying with the outside. Yeah.
And this comes down to another really important point. So not only am I fired up and inspired to teach children how to remain calm in certain situations, how to be peaceful, how to control their own emotional reactions at a young age, because we need it when we're young. You got to practice a lot, right?
Yeah.
But I also felt that it was really important that they understand what truth is, what their personal truth is. And if they can connect through interoception, if they can connect into their bodies and find their own personal truth, then no one can tell them otherwise.
That's right. The stronger.
So with all the misinformation that's out there, if you know what's true for you, then you don't have to listen to it. It doesn't have to control you. You can also know that, machines are out there creating things that go into your brain. This is another reason that we study the brain extensively, even for 4-year-olds. It's just neuroscience for preschoolers, basically. But we do talk a lot about the brain and how you feed it and how it makes you feel. And coming back to truth, we want to be able to feel that truth in our bones. We want to know what's true for us and to understand that it may not be true for someone else. Everybody's got their own body that they're interacting with reality with. Everyone's got their own spacesuit and their own reality. But if you know what's true for you, then that's where the self-confidence comes in. Yeah. That's where the ability to be calm under some stressful environments, because these children are also being raised and growing up in some pretty dodgy situations. Forgive me for going there.
I think just about everybody is.
Everybody is, and interoception is extremely important in self-regulation, because when children experience trauma, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it, war, pandemics, divorce, all of these things affect a child's ability to self-regulate, because something's wrong with their world, and they feel that. But if they're given the tools that they need that interact with that natural joy and excitement that they have for their life, and excitement for a dog or a stone or a leaf, and how, if you've ever seen young children, how fascinated and how wondrous they are.
Right,
That's what
everything's exciting.
That's what we're hitching our wagon to.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And keep that momentum going.
That's right.
So let's take a moment to mention that you can see the curriculum in the books. You want to hold up some of your books here?
Yes.
There's many more books in the series.
Yes, I've got 5 done at this point. This is the first one, Meet the Bones Family. And these books are mostly to help kids with the emotional responses, but they're beautifully done. It's in a Dr. Seuss style, and the curriculum is online at this point, but hopefully it'll be published here shortly. So you can buy a book, and even if you just buy one book, you can get the entire curriculum online for free. It's 100 pages of curriculum and lesson plans that have activities ranging from model building, so we build a model of blood, and we build the model of the lungs, and we build a model of the digestive system, and there's games, and there's movement, and there's songs that I've written
Awesome.
for the
Wow.
bones.
And you had everything it took to get this going on. That's amazing.
I
So-
feel really blessed that I get to do this. I
Yeah, and
feel
you get to
really,
do it
really
too.
blessed.
So
Yes.
your website is thebonesfamily.com.
Thebonesfamily.com.
Bonesfamily.com.
And
If you want to know more.
yeah, if you'd like to know more, some of my philosophy is there. But yeah, I mean, Alana, I can't express to you even in words how much passion and joy that I get to harvest, not only from the little guys that I am involved with, but just from a passion for life, for art. I did all the art myself and made them coloring books so that the kids, because they always want to color black and white. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's black and white, they want to put color on it.
So this whole idea that you've been talking about of hands-on and where they're involved in every part of their learning, that's part of the Waldorf approach, but it's obviously what you believe in as well. And I know when we've talked about this prior to the show that I've expressed that I feel the same way, that I really believe in that kind of learning, because as a child, to sit at a desk and just have to focus on the front of the room and somebody else talking at you and telling you what you need to know. As we can see, if you look at society, that's part of to me, that has a lot to do with the failure of society.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Not for everyone.
I guess the
anyway.
education system was designed to train factory workers back in the 1800s, and we're still teaching children the same way we taught them 150 years ago. So it's just wonderful listening to you talking about this. I wanted to show just the inside of the book. It's so cute. Let's see. Look at this. I love that. That's so cute. And then the other thing is the simplicity of it, and like you said, the style. And you just did all of this.
I did.
God, that's awesome.
Another point to the books was that I made sure that colors were sparse, not only because I wanted a coloring book, but young children are bombarded these days with screens, and they're overstimulated.
Yeah, that's what I noticed, that it's just the 3 simple colors.
Simple. So the overstimulation is dulling to the senses
It actually
after
is.
a while.
Yeah.
And then it takes more to interest them. And so it's going against the whole idea of why education and in this way is important, because we don't want kids to get overloaded and overstimulated and then become apathetic about it.
Right, exactly.
I mean, 8-year-olds at this point are behaving like teenagers, and they don't want to do anything. And public schools are realizing that their window for teaching kids is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's really quite a shame. But if you engage them and you're outdoors a lot and you're moving around, using some of those Waldorf techniques of crossing the body.
That's the thing I wanted to bring up.
Crossing the body and having movements that involve both sides, both hemispheres of the brain, allow for the learning to be simpler. You don't have to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat.
Right, exactly. They integrate as they're learning.
It integrates as they're learning, and
Yeah.
and working it into a play.
Yeah.
You know, so that they're
Play.
playing, and if it has to do with the body, well, it has to do with them. And it's all about them at that young age, so of course they're going to be interested. I have to say, they're the tenets of Waldorf that I really appreciate: the music, the movement, the development. I'm also inspired by STEAM, which is a science and technology, English and math skills, because they're into model building. So the biggest way that I get complex concepts into little tiny brains is through building models, through creating something they can make themselves, through using household items also. So they're easy enough to find at home, but they create a model for these kids to actually see how things work that they've had a hand in creating. Also, you know, there's just this part of the Montessori of it being child-led. So the child's interest, everything that I've done has been about the interest of the child and what questions they asked and how they're leading the classroom without giving them too much power, understand?
Right,
There still
keeping the
needs
balance,
to be
but
respect, there needs to be a sense of mutual admiration and excitement, and, you know, but still be following that thread of curiosity, following that thread of magic that is a part of a small child's everyday.
right, because to them the world is magic. So you're right. That's when the learning process really starts to take hold, and those alternative teaching methods. I would really like to see a lot more of it. I'm sure you do, and I hope that there's other people out there that might want to develop a similar, well, whatever your unique style is. I don't, you know, to be inspired by this. That children, I would love to see the day when we teach children this way. All children, you know, that the public schools move into. Actually, where I grew up, they were starting to do that kind of thing, and it was very successful the way they were teaching.
Right. We don't want to lose that joy at 8
the
years
joy,
old,
right?
You know, and it's getting smaller and smaller. So if you can harness that energy and keep them interested and joyful, having joyful associations with learning, in general, and continue that on, then that is
instill
truly
in
the goal.
A young age, yeah. And so there's other subjects that they could be learning, and I envision a future where the entire school curriculum is like that. So are you pretty much full-time homeschooling right now? I mean, like every day in your day.
Yes. Every day we're doing homeschool, and you know, it is always a little bit more of a struggle to get the letters and the numbers in there.
Yeah.
I try to incorporate them with skeletons and you know, animals, because they love the animals so much. And it's fascinating when you look at the skeleton of a bat and understand that the entire wings are fingers. And you know, it's the more I've gotten into bones, I have to say, even as a researcher, the more questions I have.
There's more
it's
to
deep.
it. I'm staying off of
deep.
the subject is kind of sparking in my mind, because I mean, in Maui, Hawaii, they really revered the. Is it Eevee? Is that what you call the bones?
Yes.
They revered the bones of their ancestors, and the problem is modern society comes in, and they want to build things, and there's always controversy because places have been built where they haven't taken care to protect the burial grounds, and sometimes they relocate them, like they done on the West Side for the Ritz Hotel, and it's very controversial because a lot of indigenous cultures, not just the Hawaiians, revered the Eevee of their ancestors and protected them, and some believe that it carries knowledge. So
Correct.
your work is more important, and I suppose this is evolving for you. You know, as you've been expressing it, the whole thing has really evolved for you too. You know, even from its initial leap into creation, that it's even evolving even more for you too from there.
It is, and Can I share with you my vision
Yes.
for it ultimately?
Absolutely.
So I'm not a fan of TV or video per se, but I would love to have an animated series where we explore those deeper meanings of the bones.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe
There
the Bones family travels to Mexico or Peru and
Oh,
finds
yeah,
some
or-
elongated skulls,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
what do the bones mean to the Peruvians? What do they mean to the Egyptians? You know, the Egyptians felt that the spirit would return to the bones. So the mummification process was actually about the knowledge that was within the bones that was preserved, that the spirit would come back to and contact their old bones, get the knowledge from those bones, and then take that into their next life.
That's what
So,
people
like,
have said, that that there's knowledge in the bones. And I mean,
Correct.
everything is vibrations, so you know, and everything absorbs energy and frequency, so that totally makes sense to me.
Me too. I'm hooked.
Yeah,
I'm hooked.
yeah, that's
yes.
fabulous. So just once again, what do you think are the most important benefits that the children get out of this?
So, what I'm hoping to do is to reach children in inner cities and in places that don't get a lot of exposure to nature.
Yeah, nature.
Our lack of connection to our planet and to nature itself is a problem.
I agree.
You know, humanity needs help right now. We're destroying ourselves through destroying our planet.
Yeah.
And so if I could reach these kids and get them excited about the nature within, so the nature that they can connect to inside of themselves at this crucial age, that would help them to be able to self-regulate. Again, the interoception and the exteroception, the neuroception actually comes down to being able to tell if a situation is safe, being able to tell if they're in danger, and it's all connected with self-regulation.
Yeah. And when you stay on the inside, it's your creative portal, but it's also your self-awareness.
Self-awareness.
And so staying in there, when you're
Yes.
always brought to the outside, like you said, it starts to dull you down, and it distracts you from that place. Basically, your inner guidance, you know.
That's
and,
right.
And so it's a
And your
lot.
truth.
And your truth, yeah.
Your authenticity.
Your truth is, I
Yeah.
always tell people, I have a few books that I've written, and I'm always going to that too, in what I teach too, is that your strongest defense against the craziness and the chaos, or whatever you want to describe it as, is being connected to your authenticity and to your center.
Exactly.
So yeah, wonderful. It's been great talking to you and learning more about this. I did know some of it before the show, but I really learned a lot more now. So Julia's website, once again, is thebonesfamily.com. And I'm glad you were here with me today. This video will be available on Akaku, and it will also be on YouTube on the channel Spirit of Maui. So once again, thank you. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we go?
I'm just thrilled to be here, Alana, and getting to share this with you, and let's change the world.
Yeah, we're working at one soul at a time, I always say.
One soul at a time.
Mahalo, and please join us next time. Aloha.